Let's see. Fallon and Terry. Is Principal Sanchez able to make it? As long as we have you two, we're good. We're good.
Great. Dr. Freeman, before we get started, I just want to, I see that we don't have times on this. I'm going to just put like 15-minute markers on here so we can keep it moving.
Perfect. Yep.
All right.
That was my assumption based off of the past couple meetings.
All right, Board Member Cottle.
Yes, just before we begin, I believe I see the attendee participant is our student rep, Noah. I don't know if we need to move our student rep up since student reps do participate in the CNI committee.
There he is. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Bonds.
All right, Dr. Freeman, show's yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anne, are you able to share?
You care if I do roll call real quick?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Burnside.
Board Member Susan Bergen.
Here.
Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
Here.
Board President Joshua.
Here.
Board Member Anne Marie Manny.
Here.
Board Member Alyssa Malspina.
Here.
Board Member Chris Saban. Board Member Aaron Siders.
Here.
Board Member Courtney Wingfield. I'm sorry, was that a yes?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think I.
Here.
And Board Member Johanna Wright.
I'm present.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have a busy agenda this evening. I think you're going to enjoy what we are bringing to the table this evening. One thing I've been working with Board Member Siders on is we're creating, and I'm just finishing making it look better than the state that I have it in right now, but we have a monthly calendar of presentations. One of my goals this year was to really have the supervisors and building principals present at least one CNI meeting to talk about some exciting things that they are doing in their schools, and for you to have a chance to see them in action and all the great work that they are doing. So tonight we have Principal Connors and members of Clinton Elementary School. But first up, we have some old friends to the CNI committee, members of the high school staff, Ms. Balisone and Assistant Principal Ward, and they're going to talk about something that was brought up as a request that we were planning on sharing, and I'm glad we're able to do it this evening, and that is summer school data. So I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Principal Ward and Ms. Balisone.
This summer, let me present. All right, so as you see this summer, I was asked to break it down by how many students and by color, ethnicity, excuse me. So as you can see, we had 6 Asian students, 150 Black students, 16 Hispanic, 19 multiracial, and 46 Caucasian. We had this amount of classes. So now the amount of students and the amount of classes aren't equal because several students took more than one class. So the Asian students took 7 classes. The Black students took 240 classes. The Hispanics took 29 classes. Multi-racial took 27, and the Caucasians, the white students, took 62 classes.
Mr. Wooler, would you mind just going into present mode right there? Because it's a little
Oh, sure.
small.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Much better. Thank you.
All right. So let me go back a little just so that everybody can see. All right. So as I was saying, ethnicity, 6 Asian, 150 Black students, 16 Hispanic, 19 multiracial, 46 white. The Asian students took 7 courses. The Black students took 240 courses. The Hispanic students took 29. The multiracial took 27, and the white students took 62. And once again, that's because several students took more than one class. This is the overall breakdown of grades without any ethnicity. There were 119 A's, and that's A pluses, A minuses, and just A. 59 B's, 48 C's, 51 D's, 51 F's, 6 no credit, which means that they missed too many days of school to be counted, and 31 students got a P because it was taken pass-fail. This is the breakdown of grades by ethnicity. So I'll just let that sit there and linger. But you'll see that 76 students, not that 76 students, it's that there were 76 A's handed out to Black students. So this might be 50 Black students taking 76 classes. That information I'd have to break down separately. But that's what what the numbers indicate here is that this is the amount of A's that were handed out per ethnic group, the amount of B's, C's, D's, F's, the NC's, and the passes. All right. So those are the only those are the slides that I have because that was what was requested, the breakdown of grades, of how many students were there, how many courses they took, and how well did they do in those courses.
And Principal Ward, can you just go over real fast?
There you go.
Maybe the types of classes that are pass-fail, just for everyone's identification. And
So
okay,
certainly. So all of the academic classes were grade-based. The pass-fail classes were the Cougar Prep classes. So this number includes all of the Cougar Prep classes that took place during summer school. All those classes were pass-fail, as well as a couple of online classes. So those are the only 2 types of classes that were pass-fail. Everything else was based on participation and attendance in those classes. The 6 non-credits were students who, just didn't show up as much as they should have.
okay, thank you. And let's go to Ms. Balisone, and then we can come back and ask any questions of the both of you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sharing my screen now. Okay, so I was asked to collect the data on our grads from 2021 in June through August, and also on our retained students. So this first slide is showing that we had 478 grads, which was 97% of the class. And here it is broken down by ethnicity. And then here's the 3% that did not graduate. So these students are now what we consider 12Rs or retained 12th graders. And that's the breakdown by ethnicity there for the 16 students, or 3% that did not end up earning the requirements for graduation in the state of New Jersey. So we do have more retained students than normal this year, just as we had more failures than normal last year, I would say, due to the pandemic. So this is a larger number than we've seen before of students who are retained, and it's broken down here by ethnicity. 169 students retained. It is important to note that I'd say about half of these students will be caught up to their grade level by the end of the year, which means that they were only down 5 credits or less. So about half of them should be caught up, assuming that they pass all of their classes this year. The other half are more credit deficient than that and are going to need some of the other services that we're offering. So I actually just included one last slide to talk about the kinds of things that we have in place to address some of the issues, both intervention and, as I think is really important, prevention. I hope that our students, I hope we can catch them with the services before they become credit deficient or before they don't graduate. So I think some of you may have heard me speak about this in the spring. We piloted Cougar Academy last year, which is our new alternative program for our undercredited overage students. So we're in the second phase of that pilot this year. And thanks to all of you, Dr. Friedman, Dr. Taylor, we were able to really expand the pilot this year into more of a prevention model. In addition to our traditional intervention piece. So for the prevention piece that we added this year, we were able to get 2 full-time employees, one in science, one in math, and they're doing a couple other sections too, but for the most part, the sections that they teach during the day are these like little preventative sections of algebra, geometry, and biology that are filled up to 10, so a cap of 10 students in the class, and all the students have historic failure in the discipline. So for the little biology, prevention classes, all of those students failed grade 8 science last year. And the teachers that we hired have interventionist backgrounds. So they're really taking a different approach to the class so far. They're all going really great. So we're excited to see what data comes of that we'll be able to share with you. And then we have some new things this year that we're piloting or that we introduced. First is the counseling annex, which is a place that houses all of the supports that we have for students. If some of you are able to check out the new counseling website off the CHS page, it's chock full of information, but I think the most important thing on there is that you can now access this counseling annex request form. It's right there on the website. It's a Google form. Anyone can fill it out for any child. So the child can fill it out for themselves, the counselor can fill it out, a teacher can fill it out, the parent can fill it out. And the form breaks down all of the different supports we have. So on there, you can request a tutor, you can request a social work intern, you can say that you want to attend our executive functioning groups. There's so many things offered on the form, and we just kind of spell out exactly what you need to do to either attend a workshop or be part of a group or get set up with more one-on-one individualized services. So we're getting a lot of great feedback that finally, like, all the supports are kind of in one place instead of feeling like you have to run around figuring out what we offer. We're also piloting AP Core this year. In both Counseling Annex and AP Core, I have to give a big shout out to Marsha Hicks and Jenny Easton, who have worked with me on these. They've been amazing. But AP Core is the program that we are hoping to build that's going to help our students who are traditionally underrepresented in higher level courses feel a sense of community and a sense of belonging and support in the higher level courses. So we're hoping that that kind of support also helps with student success so that we don't see some of these numbers again like we saw this year. Mr. Misbahoudin, our STEM supervisor, introduced a really cool pilot this year of something that we're calling math support. And so students who are either at risk of failure or who are trying a higher level course for the first time are being enrolled in a 1 day per week support/tutoring session with one of our math teachers in the building. So it's actually on their schedule. They're expected to attend, everything like that. That's going really well too so far. And then we have Dr. Bean folks and Chris Preston, Mr. Preston, our ELA and social studies supervisors who are piloting the Humanities Academy for 9th graders this year, where we identified students who would benefit from this in concert with the middle schools. And we now have 9th graders who have Mr. Boney and Ms. Crowther, a history and an ELA teacher, for world history and for English 1, back to back. The teachers have a shared prep, so they're working together on the curriculum. And they're going to sometimes get the students together too. And we're hoping that this kind of creates that team effect that they have in the middle schools to kind of ease the transition into high school for our 9th graders and kind of set them up for greater success there. So I just wanted to be able to share some of the programs we have in place. This is just a small sampling. Thank you.
And before we turn it over for questions to Principal Ward and Ms. Ballison, I just wanted to mention today, we actually had our school kickoff with Equal Opportunity Schools at the high school. And the one thing that we did a little bit unique, we met with our project manager and we included the middle school staff at MMS and SOMS as well. So they understood the work that we will be doing at the high school level. And one of the things that we've talked in great length with Equal Opportunity Schools about is really starting to build that foundation at the middle level. So we have as you know, we're just starting this journey with EOS. We're excited about the journey we're going to take with them. But I think today began to set the stage for the work that we're doing. And I also have to tell you, when we met with and had a leadership meeting with Equal Opportunity Schools, they were truly blown away with all of the supports that we're putting in place or are in the pipeline to be put in place. So kudos to Ms. Balsone and the work of the administrative team at the high school for really making this a focus. And I think we have some exciting times ahead. So I'd like to turn it over for any questions before we move on.
All right, great, thanks. We'll start with Board Member Wingfield and then Board Member Wright, Cuddle, Malspina. So Board Member Wingfield, over to you.
Okay, thanks. I really appreciate the responsiveness of the presentation, and I'll sort of start at the end. I was encouraged to see some of the intervention supports put in place, and would definitely love to hear more about those. But I think most importantly, I think at our next CNI meeting, it might be nice to see some interim progress data from students in terms of who's on track to capture credits in the first semester, who's not on track. Because I don't want us to get into another situation where like we are waiting for kids to fail to be able to sound the alarm, and would like to be able to see a snapshot of the degree to which these intervention measures seem to have the desired impact. So that's just a request for one of our future CNI meetings. In terms of the summer school data, I have a flag and then a question. I think my flag is just something that I think we've brought up again and again in these sessions. And that's just really the way that we share our data, and thinking about a more coherent approach to sharing data, in particular data around like performance data or outcome data by demographics, so that we have that. We're always keeping that overall baseline enrollment as a marker that we're comparing or really analyzing data around. Otherwise, I think it can be really misleading, or at the very least, very confusing. So I know that's one of our goals, and would really like to see us moving on that sooner rather than later in these types of conversations. And then my question is really, the thing that we were so alarmed by is the overwhelming disparity of our Black students who did not capture credits at the end of last year, and really wanting to have a close tie tracking them throughout the summer to see, what percentage of those students, especially our Black students who did not capture credits, what percentage of them went through summer school successfully and recaptured credits and got back on track. And I don't really feel like we got that information. And so I don't know if that's something that we can get tonight or something that needs to be followed up on. But our interest in this data was really specific to that alarming disparity data with our Black students. And I don't think we got a really clear answer as to how many failed and how many recaptured credits. And then what really is our targeted plan to ensure that those kids don't just continue to fall further and further behind.
Okay, so I can pull that data together because what I think I'm hearing you say is you want to know how many students failed, how many Black students failed overall, how many took advantage of summer school, and then how many out of those that took advantage of summer school actually passed. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would like to know that for all of our students, but I think the impetus for really wanting to track this data carefully is that we had a glaring disparity in the percentage of our Black students who were failing courses as compared to other demographics.
Okay, so as the data showed, 150 Black students actually took advantage of it, and out of that, only 13% actually failed summer school. So the overwhelming majority, 86 point something percent, 87% actually passed summer school. What percentage of that are students who actually, how many other students didn't take advantage of it? I can get for you the next time. So I'll get for you the total number of failures, total number in each ethnicity, and then we can do those comparisons.
Can you also do that by grade level too? So it's, because right now it's a little confusing because it's just a total big number. So we don't know like how many are 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Got it.
Thank you.
Board Member Wingfield, over to Board Member Wright, and then Board Member Cuddle.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation as well. I have a couple of questions. One is, what social emotional activities were included in the summer school curriculum? Were there any included?
Only for the Cougar Prep program. The Cougar Prep program had a social emotional part.
Terry, can you tell me, did you collect any data when students entered the program? And then did you collect data when students ended the program?
Data on what?
On the students entering.
I
In
do
terms
have,
of,
yes, so
okay.
I do have data on, you know, who signed up. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, well, the bottom line is clearly you did some type of outreach for the students.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm looking at I'm not really impressed with all of the A's because of the multiple kinds of things that these students had to take in order to pass. So what is going to be done, and I'm probably piggybacking on Ms. Wingfield's question about keeping these kids in place, the ones who have retained, how are we going to make sure that they're seeing the proper counselors? Maybe this is from Ms. Fallon's, how they're going to keep the correct counselors. I think these were probably 9th or 10th graders. I'm not really clear. But if we had seniors who were coming back, they sort of age out, and there's no one to be there to help them, to guide them, to show them the way, so to speak, because the counselors follow their kids through 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and then they go back to the freshman year. Is that right?
So I can
No.
speak a little bit
Oh,
to the
kids that
student-
are
to the students who
that
didn't graduate. So all of our students who, well, I'm not going to say all, there's many different extenuating circumstances going on, but most of the students who did not graduate in June or who were set to graduate this coming June and are behind on credits are enrolled in Cougar Academy for semester 1 and are set to be caught up by January. So either graduate by January if they were supposed to have graduated, or be caught up and on track to graduate in June if that was their original cohort. Through Cougar Academy, they also get a ton of other mental health support. So they actually have their own social worker assigned to them who they meet with weekly. We have one of our social work interns dedicated specifically to the program. So he actually sits in a little office in the classroom and is there all day and doing all kinds of things with them. So they have a ton of support just from that. So and of course, those students still have their same school counselor too. We didn't go back to 9th grade. They still have their same assigned school counselor that they've had for the past 4 years and have the relationships with. And all of the counselors have already had a family meeting with every single student who's been retained on their caseload.
And I would just add, Ms. Ballastone, for Ms. Wright to know, I think is really important that our assistant principals also are valuable support for our students with our counselors. And so our assistant principals, they do go from grade to grade. And so, for example, Ms. Butler is the new senior assistant principal, but she would meet with her colleague who had seniors last year to learn about these seniors who have been retained. Same thing, obviously, as Mr. Woolard meets with his colleague and as other assistant principals. So for those students, we might call a 12R, right? A 12th grader who has been retained. And Ms. Butler has met with all of her 12R students. There's a small group to just make sure and create a plan with them, with their guidance counselors, because each of our guidance counselors has also already met with their seniors. So together, the guidance counselors and the assistant principals have met with these students who are behind in credit.
Right, and I just wanted to share that Ms. Butler did the lion's share of that. She literally found every 12R and sat down, and anyone that had a relationship with those students, we sat with them in a group and we made plans Several of them have now graduated because they did the plans that we put together. So it was online classes, it was packets, it was working, with independent studies. So between Ms. Butler and Ms. Balazone, we've reached we've reached out to all of those students and put plans in place, including, like I said, online classes.
Thank you. Two quick things. Mr. Burnside, can you know for the record that Board Member Saban joined us at about 6:53 or 54? And then it is 6:57, so we've been on this topic about 23 minutes. I just want to get to these last two questions and then move forward. So Board Member Cuddle and then Board Member Malspina.
So thank you for the presentation and the insight. Very much appreciated. I'm going to just be quick with my question here. So, and I don't know how much you can say, but with the students that, especially marginalized students within summer school that did not either complete, but I'm also, very concerned about the 51D and the 51Fs and the 6 no credits. What were the extenuating circumstances? Was it no show, no performance? I mean, I feel like we perhaps getting to the root of why those students, did they fall through the cracks, support systems, were there language barriers, was it COVID, were they experiencing hardships, how we are supporting in that way. I know that, and thank you so much, Ms. Balsam, for saying about the support programs, but are we doing, how are we identifying even on a deeper level to understand how those students are perhaps not be able to be their best selves?
Okay, so the no credits were no shows. Those were students who, after 3 absences, because the state of New Jersey requires so many days of summer school, and you're allowed 3 absences. So when you hit your 4th absence, you get no credit. And oftentimes, what would happen is we had students who would go on vacation, but then they would do the work virtually. Those students were allowed to continue on. We had other students who decided not to hand in the additional work. And so those were the students that got no credit. As far as the Fs are concerned, all of the students were in person. This was not virtual. This was in-person summer school. And it was difficult for those students. So we have to do more as far as probably putting in some kind of tutorial program for right after summer school for students who are having difficult with the summer school classes. Remember, the classes are approximately 2 to 2.5 hours long. So the student is sitting there with the same teacher, and if you have 2 classes for 5 hours straight, and so if they didn't understand it, in the first 2.5 hours, it just sort of builds. So we need another program for after school, in the not evening time, but after 1 o'clock, where the students can have a tutorial program, because it's still algebra 2. It's still, classes that these are the classes the kids were basically failing. So they still need that additional help. They still need the tiering of the work so that they can understand better. You're taking a short amount of time and trying to pack in the entire curriculum. It's going to be difficult for a lot of kids.
So thank you. But if I may follow up to that, just so the understanding is perhaps there went, and I don't want to speak for you, so I'm sorry. There was not maybe additional supports. I'm just trying to break down exactly if some of our most vulnerable students, are they not feeling comfortable? Did they not have supports? Were there language barriers? Were there access barriers to materials? Did they, returning over summer because of COVID, maybe it was their first time in the building. Was there additional support around that?
So yes, it was returning. It was their first time in the building. I did hire ESL teacher for the summer for my ESL students. I don't think that was the problem. We had access And once again, they were small classes. There was never more than 20 in a class. In fact, I don't think there was ever more than 17 in a class, but I'd have to do the double check on that. And we tried our best to give as much support as possible during that time frame. A lot of the material is difficult material that the students, once again, have to pack in all of that work at the same time. So what I would suggest is and the teachers would stay after and say, okay, come on, give me more, give me something, give me anything, and not get paid for it. And oftentimes the students' minds, you get tired after 2.5 hours, 5 hours of doing the same thing. They get tired. So we have to do a better job of chunking it up. But because the state requires so many hours, our hands are kind of tied. You're required to do 60 hours to get the credits.
Can I just jump in quickly? Just to kind of follow up on our board VP's question, I think that one thing that would be helpful, perhaps as a follow-up, would be to look at year over year previous summer schools, the percentage of success versus the percentage of students who continue to struggle. And we could see perhaps if there's a trend as far as the percentage of students who are not able to connect or who are unable to be successful. And then we can see what's typical for our district, right? And then plan accordingly to support those, to provide even more supports through our next budget season for next summer. And I also want to let board members know that we have received the mathematics information that we have initiated that Ms. Balasone shared, and that'll be a part of your Friday packet.
Thank you. Board Member Malasmina?
Hi, yes, I have 2 questions. First, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Willard, for your honesty in relation to some of the things we need to do moving forward. And I do hope that we look at ways, because if these kids are failing during the school year in a 40-minute time period, it's very hard for them to do it in a 2-hour time period. So I'm hoping that CNI can find ways to make our summer school program better for the kids so that they are have the maximum ability to succeed. I guess my 2 questions are, one, first for guidance. Do we have, I know, we talked about how the vice principals have been in charge of sort of helping out with this and making sure the kids are going and getting the resources they need, but they have 500 kids. Do we have a specific guidance counselor assigned to this, or do we have guidance counselors that are checking up on the kids that are retained or overaged and undercredited? How exactly is that working from a guidance standpoint?
So the counselors stick with their caseload. So, if a student were to have a year where they failed a couple of classes and were retained, they wouldn't switch counselors. They would stay with their same counselor. So the retained students are spread amongst all of the counselors. And they are tasked with several things throughout the year. So so far, within the first 2 weeks of school, they were tasked with meeting individually with the student, having a family meeting with the student, making the whole graduation plan and sharing the doc with the family so everyone was on the same page. So that's something that they'll be tasked with each quarter, is to meet with the retained students and their families like that and to review the graduation progress. But there is not a particular counselor dedicated to failing students. They're spread amongst the counselors.
So it's up to mainly the vice principals to follow up to make sure they're going to class and doing stuff like that, or is it the counselor?
No, it's definitely a team effort. We work really well with the assistant principals. So the counselor is responsible for following up with the student and checking in on them. And I don't know what Mr. Sanchez holds the assistant principals accountable for, but I believe it's doing a similar type of thing and staying. You can speak to that a little bit, Mr. Sanchez, I suppose, but I know that the counselors are responsible for doing that for sure.
Great, thank you. My other question, I know you mentioned EOC training today. I guess it was, am I wrong? Today was a professional development day and teachers were throughout the district were getting trained on different things. I'm a little confused as to why the CHS staff was allowed to work virtually, but the rest of the district was not virtual. But also, in terms of that training, can you explain what other types of training we are giving the teachers to help these children, because we have such a high number that are being retrained?
Okay, I just want to clarify a few things. It wasn't a training, it was a kickoff today to overview the project plan of the arc of what we're going to be doing over this year. So there was really no training, it was more informational and preparing the teachers for things to come, such as the surveys that are going to be sent out to teachers and students, expectations, and the goals of working with equal opportunity schools. So today was more or less, this is who we are. This is our objective. This is what we're going to be doing. If you hear our name, if you are asked to take a survey, this is the rationale behind it. And so this is the first of many steps, just more of a welcome and a connection between the organization and our staff. In terms of professional development, there was, and I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to connect with Principal Sanchez about this. There was a memo sent out out of the CNI office that all staff members were to stay in district for professional development. So I need to talk to Principal Sanchez about I had heard about some CHS staff members going home, but that's something that we'll address internally later or tomorrow.
Yeah, let's be careful about discussing personnel here for multiple reasons. One, this isn't the personnel committee, and two, we really should discuss in public, but concern is noted.
And then the types of things that went on today, there was anti-bias training. There was co-teaching training at the elementary level. There was, as I mentioned, equal opportunity schools training. And what else am I missing? I mean, those were the big three.
All grade levels, all secondary and elementary, both had inclusion or co-teaching professional development. The elementary level had anti-biased, anti-racist professional development, and our secondary schools had the EOS kickoff.
Great, thank you. We are 7:09, so we are a little bit behind schedule. Let's see if we can push forward with the next couple topics.
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Freeman. Back to you.
Thank you. So our next guests, I'm excited to have them present. We have members of Clinton Elementary School, Principal Connors, and I'll let her quickly introduce her team. Many years ago, our director of curriculum, Anne, introduced a program when she was the principal at Clinton Elementary School, Leader in Me, based around the work of Stephen Covey. And when Principal Connors came on board, she took that program and continued on to find great success with it. So we invited her here this evening to kind of update and overview the exciting work that they're doing at Clinton Elementary. And we felt it was necessary for all of you to hear the work that's going on. So Principal Connors.
Thank you, Dr. Friedman. You took a lot of my introduction right there.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I do want to give the credit to Ms. Bodner, who brought the program to Clinton. And honestly, I can't take any success. If you know about the 7 habits from Covey, you know that it is about the team and leadership of everyone in the school. So I did ask permission to bring a team. It doesn't mean that we're going to go beyond our time, because we're going to try to be as concise as possible. But we have Zoila Correa, the assistant principal, who's joining us. We have Yolanda Kirkland. She's one of our AI teachers who is here. We have Jacqueline Tierno. She is a brand new teacher to Clinton. She's here. And we also have a parent. You probably know her from the community, Liz Gordon, and she's going to talk because the Leader in Me program is a program for leadership. And when we look at our students, we want them to be leaders throughout the whole community. So I'm going to ask Mr. Bond if he could share a video that Mrs. Correa is going to introduce. And then I want to share a little bit about what we're doing with Leader in Me this year. It is our 5th year. Last year we did a lot virtually, so I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Correa to introduce the very short video.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Zoila Correa. I'm the assistant principal at Clinton. I just want to share this wonderful video that we kind of captured from last year. It was, you know, a time of virtual and hybrid instruction, but our kids still wanted to present and get into their leadership roles. They were excited and waiting kind of like all their years. They always said in 5th grade to like lead and really be part of the leadership kids team. So you'll see an example of what they ran morning meetings and how they shared habits. I didn't put all of them because due to time, but I did highlight some. Also, you'll see how a 1st grade teacher has her little younger leaders host class meetings in the morning, and it's ran by the students and their 1st graders. And the last one is when we reach out to the community. Our school wanted a new logo, a new motto rather, and they reached out to the community and they did it all themselves. It was just such an incredible thing to see with the help of Miss Gordon as well. So here's a short video just to kind of give you an idea of how that just all wrapped up nicely. Thank you, Keith. So that was in a nutshell what they kind of worked on last year, but there's so much that we're already establishing this year. The students are all about just getting involved, and I already started student morning meetings with them and all the leadership roles that we're coming together with Mr. Lehman. He's not here tonight, but he has a team he's putting together, and you'll hear from others what more exciting things are to come, but thank you for that time.
Thank you, Ms. Correa. Our motto actually turned out to be, do you want to share it?
Learners today, leaders tomorrow.
So we picked 3 goals in our Leader in Me proposal that we shared with Dr. Friedman. The first is leadership, and that is that we will hear every voice. And what we heard from staff last year when we were closing out the year was that because we were all virtual, they didn't necessarily, well, virtual for most of the year, but also we were masked physically. We didn't hear every voice in our staff. And so this year we're really trying to be really aware of making sure that we have an opportunity for everyone, including students, parents, staff, to share their voice and for everyone to listen. The other is culture, and that is to rebuild trust and culture, focusing on the emotional environment. And that is one of the key is depositing into the bank account, the emotional bank account. And part of that is the new teachers that we have at Clinton this year. And then another goal is academics. Our teachers feel like, I know we hear people say, oh, there was a learning loss last year. Our teachers really felt that they really were able to pinpoint what students needed because we had that small group time built into the elementary schedule. And so part of the Leader in Me is something called WIGs, Wildly Important Goals. And so we will be working with teachers to develop those WIGs, not only for individual students, have the students identify them, but also for classrooms as well. And then really make time to for students to work on those goals. And that will be tied into our INRS protocol that we have. I do want to, I mentioned a new teacher. I would like to see if Jackie Tierno wanted to share anything, and then we'll go to Yolanda Kirkland. And finally, we'll end with Ms. Gordon.
Hi, Ms. Connors and everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here. So I am coming from a New York City school that is a Leader in Me Lighthouse school. So when I was interviewed by Ms. Connors and found out that the program was here as well, I was beyond excited to join the team. So Leader in Me really becomes a school culture change, really. Like I saw my school change in being a very much teacher administration run school to students really showing their voice and being able to set goals and understand what it is that they needed to do to achieve those goals, which is really amazing to see in kindergarten students all the way to 5th grade. So the Leader in Me program allows students to take ownership in what they know that they need to learn. And by parent teacher conferences, they were able to host those and tell the parents what they wanted to achieve, what they did achieve, how they achieved it. If there was something that they were not able to achieve, what was their plan to then achieve it by the end of the year? So Leader in Me really teaches students to really have a voice in what they want to see in their school building, what they want to see in their classroom, and what they want to see in their own personal lives change, which is really, really amazing.
Thank you. And Mrs. Kirkland?
Hi, thank you again for having us. I'm hoping I could be as concise, but I get chill bumps every time I think about Leader in Me and our Clinton community and the smiles just watching the video, and I knew what was coming. But anyhow, um, we've had a chance to see a lot of success at Clinton School and a lot of pride among the kids in the community and the parents. Um, Leader in Me offers a shared vision and a common language that transcends home and school. The kids develop their own value for success and they're intrinsically motivated to do well. Again, as our previous speaker just said, they are able to identify their strengths, set their goals to get stronger in areas that they might be weak. A chance to witness all parent-teacher conferences being led by students successfully, and parents just being blown away by the depth of knowledge that the kids had about their own progress and their own goals. Students that are quieter, able to find their voice because part of Leader in Me is everybody has genius. Everybody could be a leader regardless of their grade level. So there was a place for everyone to tap into a talent and share something with the Clinton community with a great deal of pride and drive. We have jobs, we have older kids helping younger kids as kindergarten helpers and younger kids helping each other. There's less issues with discipline and teachers have more time to focus on academics because kids are more focused on what it is that they need to do. I don't know, I could go on and on and on, but in the interest of time, I'm just gonna pause and say, I'm really excited about the things that I've seen happen at Clinton through the Leader in Me program. And I'm hoping that in this conversation, you also see that it's establishing values that would benefit all the way through their school year into high school. And maybe some of the conversations that were being had at the beginning of this meeting before we came on as Leader in Me may have been resolved for some of those kids had they had this training at their foundational level of elementary school. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Kirkland. That's a great segue into Mrs. Gordon. And you might want to, I know you will, you'll share that you're a parent of many in the district.
Yes, I am. Thank you. I do. I have 4 kids in the district. My oldest is in 10th grade, and she was in 5th at Clinton when we started Leader in Me. And the first thing I will say is that one of the reasons I was PTA president when we brought it in, one of the reasons that we were so enthusiastic about it is it's infectious. The teachers in the school were so enthusiastic about it. It was hard to not be excited about it. And I think it's been pretty good. So I will start with the one thing that I did not love about Leader in Me was when my youngest, who's now in 3rd grade, was in kindergarten. They start the kindergartners with learning, like setting their wildly important goals, and just to get a taste of what Leader in Me does. And Laramie's wildly important goals included things like clean my room every week. But because they have to have an accountability partner, who's going to check in and see if you do it. Liz Gordon was always his accountability partner, never mom, but Liz Gordon. And then he would come home and hand it to me. I'm like, you didn't clean my room this week, mom. So what's going on? So little misinterpretation from kindergartners, but otherwise we've had really good experiences. My fifth grader just last week came home and on Monday and said, I've got my math packet, it's due on Friday, but I forgot to be proactive last week and I'm going to sit down and do it today on Monday so I'm not sad on Thursday. So that's the kind of thing that I like as a parent. It's like just these little tools. My wildly important goal as a parent this year is to get the parents at home back interested in these things and to remember that we can say these things to the kids because they have that vocabulary now and it's a shared vocabulary. My eighth grader earlier this year, at the beginning of the year, she came home and said to us, remember when Laramie was born, you said when he was in third grade, we'd talk about getting a dog. Well, he's in third grade now. And she's like, so can we get a dog? And I was like, yeah, we can talk about it. We're not getting a dog. I still not doing that. But she's like, okay, well, mom, let me understand why, which is one of the parts of Leader in Me. Seek first to understand and then be understood. And then she came back with the other kids and they had a whole proposal, but they're like, we're going to do a win-win. So instead of another dog, can we have another cat? We're cat people here. And this is why I have a kitten running around in the back of the room right now because they did it. I was like, I can't say no. So maybe as I'm saying this, maybe Leader in Me is a way for kids to manipulate their parents. I don't know, but it works on me. And I did just want to say, in with like my 10th grader, with 3 other former Clinton students, have for the last 2 summers run a backyard camp here in my yard with little kids. And they this summer had a couple of kids that kept fighting and were really difficult for them. And at the end of the day, one day they sat down and they were like, we need to be proactive. We need to figure out how we're going to stop this. We can't have them together. What do we want the day to look like tomorrow? How do we make this plan? And just hearing them talk, I was like, that's so many of those tenets of Leader in Me. And it was so impressive. And they're impressive. And I feel like I don't think I was that kid when I was in 10th grade, and definitely again, didn't have that kind of vocabulary to sit down and think about things in that sort of it's our calm time now. Let's sit down and process through what we're going to do next. And they just handled it with such maturity. And it was really impressive. And it was 4 kids who were in that first fifth grade class with Leader in Me. So overall, I feel like it's been really successful in my house and successful for us. So I hope that we're able to continue that and keep that going. Now, I will say I've asked some of those kids to come talk tonight, and all of them were like, I'm not going on camera. So that's not part of Leader in Me. And I was like, all right, whatever. But that is all.
Well, thank you. I just want to thank everyone who came from the Clinton community to share the little bit of what Leader in Me means to them. It really is an amazing program. I know Mrs. Correa, she didn't share this, but when she interviewed for the position, she held up the Leader in Me book because her school did not have it, but she believed so much in it that she had studied it and put a lot of it into practice prior to coming to Clinton. So it really runs through the veins of the staff at Clinton, and it's just an amazing program. So we hope to do a community day when we are allowed to allow more people into the building, and we hope that you will take an opportunity to come visit us.
Thank you, Principal Connors. Are there any questions for the Clinton team before we let them go for the evening?
Yeah, I see board member Connell and board member Malaspina. Just wanted to note the time is 7:30, so if we can keep these questions and answers short and brief so we can move on. Oh, and actually, if both of them don't mind, student rep Morrows just raised his hand, so I'm going to let him go first, and then we'll come back to the board members in that same order.
All right, thank you so much. This sounds like an amazing program. I really enjoyed the video that you guys had prepared too, and I love just kind of hearing from members of the Clinton community, like the benefits that are coming from it. I know you just kind of mentioned maybe like a minute ago about visiting the program, and I think that would be something really cool, at least for me as a representative of, there's students in the district. If I could find time, we can obviously email us, doesn't have to be now, to come visit those students, kind of hear like what they think could be done better. I mean, or concerns that they want expressed to the board in a way.
Yes, absolutely. I think Miss Connors just got locked off by accident, but oh my gosh, yeah, we would totally welcome that. Yeah. Thank you for yeah, we'll keep you in mind. We would love to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I can just shoot you an email after this.
Thanks. Board Member Cottle?
Yeah, thank you, President Joshua. So this was a very heartwarming presentation, so thank you. It's the kind of inspiration I think that is really kind of infectious. So I guess my question would be, with the program itself, do you have other schools that have noticed this and the work that y'all have been doing, and that are also looking to model this? Or is this unique to Clinton at the moment? Because only I know that I have heard from behind the scenes there are other, there's other teachers that are looking for leadership opportunities for their students and building student leadership. So this seems like a great portal to that. So.
I don't know. Is it okay if I respond to that, Ms. Correa? Yes. We're still a learning school, and we've started out by visiting other schools that were successful in the program and getting our inspiration from them. And just like Ms. Correa opened the invitation for anyone to come and check out what's happening at our school, we would absolutely be open to that. But it's a big conversation and it is a big commitment, and you do need to share that vision among staff, students, families at home, and you need to establish a team of people that are willing to help push and move it forward. And yeah, if anyone was interested in it at all, not that I have the authority to open the school building to make that happen, but I would love for more schools to be inspired to use Leader in Me as a common practice to inspire kids for that intrinsic value of learning and to ease the burden of classroom management and discipline and more focus on academics.
Board Member Cuddle, I just want to add that over the past year, we've had these conversations exactly to your point. I've talked to the other principals. What's interesting is I've had some traction with both middle schools and the high school. Principal Sanchez and I went down the road pretty far with really looking at how Leader in Me could fit, knowing some of the other things coming in the pipeline, equal opportunity schools and some other things that we want to target on. We kind of hit the brakes on this year, coming back. But it's definitely in consideration for 22-23. I think what I'm hearing from you is that, why isn't this exciting program more systemic? And that's one of the conversations that I've had ongoing actually with Principal Connors. And she'd probably be the first to tell you that I asked that question a lot. And it's something that I want to explore because I think that it's amazing. Everything that I hear from Anne, everything I see in action at Clinton, there's so many pros to implementing something like this. And really, I think it could be the potential for the Clinton staff to almost be a training school for the other schools in the district. I think could be a pretty neat opportunity. So it's something that we're going to continue to talk about and look at and potentially budget for next year.
Dr. Kirby, can I just add one thing to that I think is really, really important? This conversation of Leader in Me had been happening for a while. There was a group of teachers who kind of took hold of this before anyone else at Clinton, and they brought it to me. And they spearheaded it. It was a teacher-driven program from the very beginning, and that it is truly why I think it's so successful at this point, is that the teachers truly believe in it. They run it with the students run that school. I was there, Ms. Connors, I'm sure, is there in a way of supporting most of it. And the teachers were, they do a lot of the work. So that is something that needs to be really focused in on and given the credit to Clinton school teachers, because they did an amazing job and continue to.
Yeah, and I thank you, Anne, because you saw it from the very beginning. It would be a hard program just to literally throw a book at a school and say, here, implement this, because it really has to be in your heart. And it is at Clinton. It really, you can feel it in the hallway. You can feel it. We took a lot of time crafting our interview questions when we hired our new staff this year, to really make it feel like we were hiring people for the Leader in Me, which Jackie Tierno, who talked this evening, she was like, hey, this, I'm familiar with it. And she's, brought herself and what her experience to Clinton to help us move it forward. So yeah, it's great. And I think maybe Dr. Friedman, we could tap into Mrs. Correa a little bit more, because she did implement a lot of the Leader in Me without having the whole program there. So if there were people interested, maybe we could do a little bit of it. But to bring it to a whole school, that's you really have to get buy-in from staff. So.
Thank you. Board Member Malaspina?
I think, first, I thank everybody for the presentations. I especially appreciated the children's video and the parent testimony. I think it was so awesome to see how this is being used by our children, not only now, but like kids that took it in 5th grade are still using it in 10th grade. So we've seen the benefits of this program. And I'd like to sort of echo what Miss Cuddle, I'm sorry, not Miss Cuddle, Board Member Cuddle stated, which is that it seems to be working and it seems to have some lasting impact for our students. So I would love to find a way to move it to not just one school, but to more schools, because we have an equity issue in our district. And we have a known problem with, one school having one thing, not equitable, one elementary school doing one thing and another doing another thing. And so I would love to see it moved forward in whatever way possible so that it becomes something that all students can benefit from, because it then will move up to the other grades, as Miss Gordon and others stated, that, she's seeing her students in 10th grade using it now. So, I'd rather us look at ways to use it for bring it to all elementary schools before we look at moving it to the middle and high school, because I just think that moving forward would benefit everybody. So I guess that's a long way of not really answering. Shannon took my question, but
it's okay. We have plenty more.
I think it's really great.
No problem.
I will say that when we sat in and started talking about being a Leader in Me school, it is their structure to have one school kind of set up and then spread to other schools. It's not necessarily meant to just be one school per district. It's meant to be that one school starts out and then they become leaders who help the other schools do it. And so, as everybody said, like people in the buildings need to want to do it, but it's not impossible. It's definitely like a very doable thing to spread it. At least that's how it was 5 years ago when they were explaining it to us. They call it like a lighthouse. You have your lighthouse school, and then it moves to the other schools around you.
I would love to see you guys continue to model that lighthouse and move us forward to other schools.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Connors and your staff, and Ms. Gordon, who's not your staff, but for presenting to us this evening. Dr. Freeman, I'd like to move on to number 3, approvals for October. I guess this is where we can make up some ground here. It's 7:41.
The next several will make up some ground, I promise. Thank you, Clinton members. Okay, so Ms. Bodnar and I are going to talk about the approvals. And can you bring up the agenda again? So let me just quickly talk about the curriculum approvals. We took a different approach than we did last year, where we bombarded the Board of Education with a large number of curricula to look at. So we wanted to break it down, make it more palatable this year. I can assure you that looking forward, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We are working with Atlas to make it even more seamless moving forward, where board members will have access. But let's focus on this year. We were pretty happy with how the spreadsheet turned out, talking about the content area, the course, what specifically was revised or written, or if it was a new course. And so, and we provided you with a hyperlink to the curriculum itself. So there was a significant amount. We are going to try to stagger that moving forward. As you know, we start writing curriculum as soon as school lets out in the summer, but we are preparing leading up to that point. So we are going to continue to refine the process, but we're pretty happy with you know, where we were last year as opposed to where we were this year in terms of providing you that information. There was a lot of hard work that went into curriculum writing. Currently, if you remember several months ago, I talked about when we were talking about the curriculum cycle at the committee level. We are doing some training with potential curriculum writers for next summer, where they are going through all the components of the UBD framework. So when we get to June, we're going to get a even more consistent language and higher quality of curriculum writer when they come to the table in June, and they're looking at writing and revising and connecting resources to our curriculum. So there's been a lot of work put into this over the past year, and I hope you enjoyed reading that pretty expansive document. Secondly, I got to pull up the agenda. And can you?
Dr. Friedman, it's the Danielson group.
Oh, the Danielson group. Thank you. Thank you. So just a quick update on the Danielson group. If you remember, when we came to the board for approval on the work that we were going to do with the administrative staff and the teachers with the Danielson group, I outlined the work that we're going to do with administrators, specifically the district administrative team, principals, assistant principals, supervisors, central office folks. And we had at our June DAT meeting, June 25th and 28th, we started to do a deep dive into the Danielson framework, with the understanding that we were going to come back this fall to kick off the year and do a deep dive with teachers over the first 2 days of professional development to really understand the domains and components of the Danielson framework, since for the first time in the district, we were going to use all 22 components along with all 4 domains, and that's how teachers would be evaluated. One of the things that we were going to do in conjunction with that, and was really received a lot of feedback when we did it in the past, were learning walks where administrators got together, walked through and observed classrooms, and then debriefed with a trainer from the Danielson group. Because we are still in the pandemic, because the rates continue to go up and down, I think it should be pretty obvious, we're not letting outside any outside groups come in, and we're really avoiding large gatherings of people at this time. So we put our heads together to think about how we could continue the conversation, continue the ongoing training. And we came up with a really good plan to kind of pivot for the 21-22 school year. So in lieu of doing face-to-face walkthroughs and discussions, we are going to do ongoing focus group training with the administrative team. So we're going to introduce what we call priority components and priority domains. We have it broken down into 4 quarters, and what we'll do is we'll introduce those the particular domain and components, talk about exemplars and what to look for along with the other domains at that time. We will have a wrap up at the end of the quarter, and all the administrators will come back together. They'll share examples, we'll compare notes, we'll look for consistencies and best practices in common language. We're going to do that across the whole school year through June, and we think that's going to lay an even stronger foundation when, crossing our fingers, we come back next fall at the beginning of the 22-23 school year and hopefully can have our in-person on-site walkthroughs to really make this actionable inside classrooms. So we're coming to you tonight because we needed to rewrite the contract. Everything that I just said essentially added 4 sessions to the already three sessions to the already existing 5 sessions that we had contracted out with the Danielson group. So we just had to rewrite it. So that's coming forward. Ms. Bodnar, do you want to just talk briefly, since you've been really kind of spearheading one of our favorite things, field trips, talk briefly about that?
So we are this year allowing for teachers to put in for field trips. We're being very careful about reviewing COVID restrictions with wherever it is that they're going. Every field trip does have to be written up, whether it is a walking field trip, which is usually just a signed permission slip from parents at the beginning of the school year. They could go on walking field trips. We are asking that everything is written up and sent to us for approval so that we can see what the COVID restrictions are for that particular site. But the field trip SOA is a list of all the field trip destinations that could possibly be attended to by some of our students. Our teachers and our principals come together and create their list, and our principal signs off on it. And then it is approved by you that these are destinations that you are okay with our students going on. And then that doesn't mean that we can't deny a field trip if someone should choose to go on one that was approved. Again, we are being very strict about our COVID restrictions and looking at all the protocols that are being followed. So this is just an overall approval. You will have approval on every individual field trip that goes through, and you can decide whether or not you approve it at that moment. So this is just the list of every single place in the district that somebody in the district could possibly want to go.
All right, thank you. Board Member Manny, Bergen, and then Malsvina.
Thank you. I was just wondering how we're going to provide feedback on the curriculum this year.
I believe, and I looked up last year, you just emailed us specific questions and we got back to you. If you want to take the same approach, or I can create a document if it makes it easier, or we can work through board member citers. I'm open to any and all suggestions on that, but I remember specifically, Board Member Manny, you had a question about one particular class last year, and you sent me the question directly, and I was able to meet with the supervisors and get you the answer. So whatever pathway is easiest for you.
Okay. And I didn't,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't read the resolution. Are we approving all of these curriculum that are in the in the spreadsheet for October? The meeting next week? Okay,
Everything that we handed over, yes.
thank you.
Thanks, and we can figure that out offline, Emery, about what's the best approach. So we'll stay tuned for that. Okay, board member Bergen, Malspina, then Cuddle, and then board member Wright. So Bergen and then Malspina.
Thank you. I have a question about the list, the field trip list. I know that I guess my question is, what kind of thought is being put into making sure that children across our schools have the same sort of field trip and educational opportunities, and how that's going to be funded? I think in the past, a lot of that was done on a school by school basis by PTAs, and that has led to different schools having drastically different experiences in terms of field trips and the trips that the students are able to take. So I just wanted to see what sort of oversight is happening with that to make sure that everyone is included.
Andy, you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Sure. I think the main thing that we have been trying to do, and especially since I came into this position, is really try to have those conversations with our principals and ensuring that we are finding equitable opportunities for our students. No child, no matter what, will be denied a trip. We have, the board has graciously, or I believe, or Dr. Taylor has created a budget line that is specifically for these situations where, whether it's a graduation cap and gown or a field trip or a dual enrollment class, we have a budget line that funds these particular situations. I agree with you. I think we need to do better on ensuring that, especially across equal grade levels, of making sure that happens. And that discussion has begun pre-pandemic. I know I brought it up often because that was a concern to me. I think that that conversation needs to continue. When it comes to any of the trips, we had in the past, there have been trips to Spain and to Italy and to all of these different countries. And I did receive some pushback because I said that no child will be denied a trip and that you need to figure out how you are going to fund this. You know, if a student wants to go, we're sending them. If we're offering it, we're sending them. And it did take some planning, but one of the trips pre-pandemic was the band trip down to Florida, and they made it happen. So my conversation with anyone bringing a trip as such like that to me, I'm sure to Dr. Freeman also, is have a plan, and they have to write out a full plan of how they would be doing that.
Yeah, board member Bergen, I just want to add, last year the conversation was around when talking to all the home and school parents organizations at the elementary schools, talking about the artist in residence program, and we really focused on equity there, providing the same opportunity across all buildings. And we kind of started to talk about, even though it seemed like it was very far away as we were living through, you know, the height of the pandemic, talking about field trips and doing things equitably across the district, you know, grade level wise, and really putting money together and really planning together. So, you know, as Ann mentioned, you know, there were some conversations that predated my start in the district, but I can tell you that those conversations have continued, and we're really looking at things on a more holistic, systemic approach than this individual buildings.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Bodner, for pushing on it. I think it's also important to think about not just if you have these sort of extravagant trips, saying that you won't turn anyone down, that's one thing, but also making people who need the financial assistance feel like they really are meant to be included in it is a whole nother level that needs to be thought about. And then the other thing is you know, in terms of the field trips, the sort of most glaring thing that comes to mind is that I realize this hasn't happened during the pandemic, but the differences between SOMS and MMS and what the PTAs are able to fund and the trips that are able to happen with an overnight trip to DC and, at one and no corresponding trip at the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Malaspina and then Cuddle and Wright.
Okay, for some reason I lost all control of the mute or unmute. I guess my question is, I looked through the curriculums and I read through them, and I appreciate everything, the time that went into writing all of them. My questions relate to the modifications in terms of ELL and special ed and other modifications that are put in. They seem very generic and not really specific to the curriculum, just like extra time or, sort of cut and paste like. Can you explain how they were created and sort of, are they going to be written in a way that is more tailored to like specifics? Like in this class, you should do, in this curriculum, you should be using this text or that text or stuff like that.
Yes and no. The curriculum had a lot of sets of eyes on it, from Dr. Robles to members of special services, to different people writing the curriculum. And I think part of the decision in some areas was to keep it general because there's individualized plans for the specific needs of ELL students, and so it varied. So they wanted to keep things kind of broad, like at the bigger picture level. And when we start to dive down to units and eventually lessons in Atlas, we'll get more specific. But the overarching curriculum that's posted, the decision amongst the supervisors and back, to us, was that in certain areas they wanted to just kind of put some general expectations with the understanding that either we're going to be focusing on individual needs along the way with those specific areas, or as we start to drill down into specific units and lessons, when necessary, we get more individualized and more specific. So I can circle back definitely with Dr. Robles and the team and get some more clarification on that. But that was the initial conversations going into the summer that we had.
It wasn't just DSL, it was anything related to modifications. I'm just concerned because we know that that's a issue we struggle with, and the modifications all seem to be very generic, and I want to make sure that we are not doing just generic modifications, that we are personalizing them as much as possible to help our students who are struggling.
All right, thank you. Board Member Cuddle and then Board Member Wright. Board Member Cuddle.
All right, I lost the screen. It just started loading. Thank you, President Joshua. Thank you. I shared the same kind of field trip concerns that Board Member Bergen brought forward for equity and excellence, and overall ensuring that students have access. Just a personal point, as somebody who was a marching band kid, and we did do trips to Florida when I was a kid in marching band, I didn't get to go. So to all of the marching band trips, and that was an equity issue. And so that's, I just bring that up. And I know that's not just, a lot of our students have challenges around that. So making sure that we have positions where we're making things accessible for students, I think is really important. in regards to the curriculum, I did want to share that the graphic novel is a new curriculum piece, and I thought that was really cool. I know that that's really of an interest for students, and a lot of our teachers have been really interested in trying to do add additional graphic novels as part of a curriculum. So I thought that was very interesting. So I just also had a process point about Atlas. So I noticed that the frame of the curricula in Atlas is different than the frame we used before. And I'm assuming that that is part of us having this great new resource. But one of the potential visual differences I'm seeing is where we had how the framework that we used to create the curricula template had the section that said where we were meeting Amistad, LGBT, cultural competency, and many other ways. That actual block is not there anymore in Atlas. And I don't know if that's because it's a default of Atlas and we have to tweak that to individualize it for us, or it's something that we have to add. But I just wanted to kind of ask and or flag that.
Well, just quickly, Board Member Cuddle, it is there. It is actually one of the most important things that I kept pushing to have. It's under other curricula, and then it has any connection to Amistad, Holocaust, culturally relevant teaching. The public, it's there for public view, and it's also there for teachers to see. I'd be happy to, like, if you want to, just at another time, because that we actually used the template that we created a few years ago to create the template on Atlas. So they took what we had and created what's there. It might be moved around a little bit, which might be the confusing part of it, but all the pieces that we created are actually on there. But I'd be happy to, you know, walk you through it and show you where everything is. But you should. But definitely, even if you went on right now to the Atlas public facing, you would see those pieces. We wanted to be very, very transparent in that way of what our students are learning in that area.
And just to follow up, so I know we've been very intentional, and thank you, Ms. Bonner, for ensuring that we are publicly facing those benchmarks. I guess perhaps previously my understanding is that in looking at the curricula, it was noted in each, the section was checked off in each and every one. So perhaps maybe it's just now we're reformatted that for the ones that meet that benchmark versus each individual one. Is that what I'm hearing?
You should see them if it is applicable. That unit is applicable to any of the outside curricula, meaning Amistad or Holocaust or culturally relevant learning, LGBTQ, any of the curricula that we have to incorporate, it is in there. So when you go through, no matter which curricula that you're looking at, it's by unit.
Right. So I will go back, but when I went through it, I did not see that. It was very clear initially. So I just wanted to ask a question and flag if it was something.
We would be happy to go through it with you at any time. Yeah. There were a lot of layers to formatting the curriculum in Atlas, as you can imagine. I mean, it took a whole year to get to this point. And so as Anne mentioned, this was all, the best way to lay this all out was in the other tab instead of having it outside of that. I mean, it looked too bunched up. So this was the easiest way and the cleanest way to do it. But we, like I said, we would be happy to walk through it with you at any time.
Great, thanks. Board Member Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Joshua. You know, you stated that today's professional development PD session was more of an overview. So how are you addressing cultural competence in between professional days?
So the overview was that you're speaking of, are you referring to equal opportunity schools today? That was the only overview, and that was to kick off the partnership with the staff. In terms of cultural competence, I mean, I think that, gosh, I mean, that varies from building to building.
Hold on, Dr. Freeman, let me just jump in. I think, yeah, as you were saying, that was just
the anti-bias training.
so what's the question? Because we I guess we had moved on. So if you're going back, I just want to reframe it so that we can keep this going, because we're still on topic 3 of 9 and we've been here an hour and a half. So is the question about general anti-bias training, or it was about today specifically?
What are we going to do in between those professional development days in terms of addressing cultural competency?
Can I suggest that get discussed in personnel tomorrow in the interest of time, and then a report sent out to the board?
Why? We're on CNI now. Why not now?
I just explained, because we've been here an hour and a half. You and I have been in meetings for 3 hours.
And I've been, no, for me, I've been in meetings all day from Essex County to here from 11 o'clock this morning. And I'm alert, and I want to know why I can't. It's ridiculous. You need
I'm
to
not
answer.
saying you can't. All I'm suggesting is, in the interest of time, I'm not saying.
Suggesting move on and not answer my question. All I'm asking, if the question can't be answered, just say we don't know.
And I'm saying, if these people can't, maybe personnel can, which is why it could be discussed there. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not in personnel. I'm in CNI, and I would like to hear from the CNI director or Ms. Bodner.
So in terms of how we're tackling cultural competence at all the buildings, or anti-bias, I mean, that's a pretty expansive answer. I mean, at the elementary level, I mean,
I can jump in a little bit with this, I think. So we have, right now, we have already have the next 4 half days are focused, especially at the elementary level, is really working on anti-biased, anti-racist work. They will have ongoing professional development this year through the next 2 years with our Steve Fideldi, who is running this professional development. It is individual by building, small group. It is teachers only, teacher and staff only. Administrators are asked to stay out of the conversation in this situation, so that they can, so that teachers can have real conversations. They will be starting with the historical pieces of race and understanding of race, and then moving forward and building off of that in building blocks. It will, as we continue to hear feedback from these professional developments, we will change if need be, or if certain situations come up and we have to address and process things that are happening in the district, we'll absolutely do that. Steve has been working closely with Dr. Friedman and I in planning. They are teachers and principals are having conversations in faculty meetings. This is cultural competency, anti-bias and anti-racist conversations have happen constantly throughout faculty meetings, PLC meetings. Our PLCs, our teachers can choose to do a lot of work in this area, which I know some have decided to do that. At the middle school level, we are really focusing in on making sure that our teachers have tools and resources to use in their classrooms, and also to have real conversations with their students about equity. We teamed up with Newsella, and they will be having, and Newsella is a resource that we have purchased that will give teachers kind of like conversation starters with their students, and that focuses in on equity, on LGBTQ, on race, on equity. And then at the high school level, we're really focusing in on EOS, and making sure that we are giving them and all the information that they need, that we are giving them opportunities to take the surveys and gather the data and study the data that we are getting in return back from them so that we can implement their suggestions and have real conversations. So those are kind of the areas that we are in at this point with professional development and the work that will be done at faculty meetings and PLC meetings.
Thank you. I understand, but I was asking what is happening in between those days. That's all. But thank you, Ms. Bodner.
Thank you. On to Portrait of a Graduate, Dr. Friedman.
Okay.
It is, just want to point out, it's 8:11, so let's try to keep this party moving.
Yep.
We've got 19 scheduled minutes, I think, unless you said it was for 9:30, but let's, go ahead.
Okay, we're gonna bring up a quick two slide deck here, just so you have a visual to look at. So as we're bringing that up, as you know, we kicked off the Portrait of a Graduate work months ago at this point. Starting in June, we had the first of 4 meetings going throughout the summer to our most recent meeting, October 4th. During those meetings, we started talking holistically, big picture, and really started to narrow down. Culminating at our last meeting where we really shared the data around the competencies that the committee felt were the most important to focus on for our K-12 learners, what we wanted them to know, do, and understand by the end of 12th grade. So the knowledge, skills, and competencies that we zeroed in on, we felt were the most important. The work at the last meeting on October 4th also really started to zero in on creating district definitions for those and what that work would look like at the end of 5th, 8th, and 11th grade. Currently, we're in process of working with some high school student artists to create a visual rendering of our work around the competencies. And we're projecting that we're probably going to have 2 more meetings to start to wrap things up. In addition to those meetings, once we get the visual rendering of what this Portrait of a Graduate is going to look like, and we start to write out the content, we're going to send it out to all the stakeholder groups for some feedback. Once we get that feedback and bring it back to the committee, we will finalize things and bring it to the board for a presentation and final approval. We're excited with the work that's been going on with that. And we feel that it's going to be more than just a piece of paper and words on a paper. It's going to hold some meaning behind it. You know, the group has been consistent throughout these meetings, and it's a big ask to really commit to something that stretches through the summer into the fall and potentially winter months. I just want to publicly thank Board Member Manny. You've been, not only vocal at all those meetings, but consistently have been at all of them. So I just want to thank you for that. But more to come, and we just wanted to update you on where we were right now. So I'm going to turn it over to Anne for the next slide here.
Sorry.
Wait, Board Member Manny has a question before we push to number 5.
Yeah, I just wanted to update the board as a reminder that this Portrait of a Graduate, strategic planning, values, that type of work, the big difference between how we did this a few years ago and this time is it is mostly being driven by staff. Dr. Friedman and Ms. Bodner have really assembled great staff. So we're getting our staff is talking about, what they're seeing in the classroom, what they're hoping to see in the classroom, and what they would like from our students. So I am very grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, back to Ms. Bodner.
Okay, I will be fast because I know there's been a lot of information going out to the community about our Start Strong assessments that are state assessments. They are pretty much starting tomorrow across grade levels. They will start, our grades 4 through 12 will be assessed in ELA and math. Grades 5, 9, and 12 will also be assessed in science. They are based on the previous year's standards. So we're looking at where they are at the beginning of this school year. From, if you are a 5th grader, they'll be looking at 4th grade standards. Each assessment's about an hour long. I do hear that they go much faster than that. And all students with 504s and IEPs will receive their modifications that are in their documents. And these assessments are not required for graduation. And they hopefully they will be done quickly and painlessly, and we can move forward with our teaching and learning.
Okay, thanks. The virtual instruction plan update.
Yes, we'll be quick.
Board President Joshua, I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. The screen.
It's
I got you. Go ahead, Board Member Winfield.
Okay, a really quick question and then a longer question. Are these assessments part of the American Rescue Plan requirements being rolled out across systems to assess whether you call it learning loss or just to sort of assess where kids are? Are these part of ARP?
In all of the research that I've been doing, I am the district testing coordinator, so I've pretty much read everything possible by the state. They have not directly connected it to the grant, but we are using it is part of our in our grant writing proposal to set as one of the forms of data that we will be using. So we have our own in-house data that we use, our TC, our Teachers College reading, our math assessments, our STAR Renaissance, and all of those. But I also added when writing the documents for the ESSER grant is that this is one piece of data we'll be reviewing also, but it wasn't directly connected from the state. They didn't necessarily say.
Yeah. And Board Member Wingfield, even though the state never outwardly used the word benchmark, you know, essentially, I think it's a baseline and a benchmark to between now and the spring testing to track growth.
Yeah. I think I've definitely heard some concerns about like.
I think
we lost your sound, Board Member Wingfield.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I've heard some concerns from folks about using instructional time to gather further assessments when we already have STAR Renaissance and other things. And I think one of the things that I would love to see the district do is just sort of contextualize this in the uniqueness of the year that we're all experiencing and how this extra data, why it's being gathered, and specifically how the district is going to use it, but more specifically how the classroom level teacher is going to use it. So if my child is going to be assessed, how quickly are they going to get that data, and what are some of the things that I could expect as a parent that this data could be used for? And then on the district level, my question, you know, a big push and one of our big goals this year is to push the district towards coherence around the intervention responses. And, you know, one of the things I know that our data is for in our district is to really hold folks to thinking about the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 interventions based on what they see. And so I would love to, number one, understand how you guys are supporting schools and what's the district's expectation around what all schools should be doing with this data coherently. And then I would love for us to be able to revisit that once you've captured the data to be able to actually see how that was implemented.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Malaspina.
So these are not being used as graduation requirements for the high school or for any other grade. Am I correct? So there is an option for parents to opt out if they choose.
Now I went to the state and asked about that. They have told us that there is no opt-out option for these tests. just like it has been for the past few years with our standardized tests. We cannot say there is an opt-out option.
But as in every other case, parents can have refused their child.
The refusal, yes. Yes.
So they
but
can.
There's not a when we first started Park, there was a real opt-out option to these, where we actually checked it off in the system, in the Pearson system, saying that it was an opt-out, and we kept all the records. But there is a refusal, correct?
There is a refusal option for these tests for if parents do not want their child taking them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to go on to the virtual remote plan update. Dr. Freeman.
Okay, I just wanted to bring this up at the committee level, that we are finishing up creating the plan for virtual learning that the county wants us to turn in by October 29th. It needs to be board approved, so we will have this to you by Friday for your review. I will tell you that a lot of it is essentially what we did was we took a hard look at what we had done over the past close to 18 months, what worked, what didn't work, and what we needed to kind of tweak and look at moving forward. Lessons learned along the way, and making some tweaks for where we are right now. So we'll be sharing that document with the board later this week, and we'll be seeking approval for it on Monday and turning it into the county by October 29th.
Great, thank you. I'm going to skip number 7 and make that last for this evening, and then now go on to the policies. All right, so we have 2 policies for second read. 2417 Pupil Intervention and Referral Service, and 5770 Student Right of Privacy. Board Member Bergen.
Thank you. I just wanted to update the whole board. The policy committee met last night and discussed the INRS policy and how we had received some feedback on it, and we're in the process of incorporating, and we decided that we would wait and not put it for second read this month, so that the new assistant superintendent for access and equity can be involved in reviewing it before it goes back again for first read. So if anyone has any
you meant special services.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. That's what I meant. If anyone has any comments on it, then it's not too late to send them, and we'll put it. I think the idea is to have it back for first in November.
Okay, thanks. So any other, I don't see anything else on the policies. So special services.
I don't know if they are here this evening. I was looking around to see. I don't either.
I don't see anyone either.
So I will speak with Mr. Johnson, and I will get a written response to all of you on the updates that they had on the agenda.
Okay, and then also I think, as you said, with the new assistant soup starting early November, maybe we can bring it back for discussion at that point.
Yep.
Okay, so then last but not least is the this piece on equity and access, the response to the DCR letter, the Title IX training, and the task force. Board Member Bergen.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I need to recuse myself from the DCR response, so I'm going to mute myself and turn off the video for this portion of the meeting. Thank you.
So before we do that, should we go backwards so then you can just leave? So Title IX training and task force stuff first, and then when we get to that, you can just leave because that'll be the last topic.
Sure, or I'll turn the video off, but I'll stay to listen because this is public, I think, if that's okay.
All right. We could, okay, so
You
let's
shouldn't
just
even
do,
have to turn off your video. You can just say you're recusing yourself.
Well, I'm happy to do it so that there's no appearance of my participating in the conversation.
okay, so thanks. Okay, Board Member Manny.
I I thought we had talked about discussing storage of the meetings and taping of these meetings, so I didn't want to imply that Dr. Taylor had mentioned that we would do it at the beginning of this meeting, but we had so many guests, I didn't want to.
Yeah, so this one will be stored. We just I think we need to do an edit because of that video with the children. I don't know if we can just post that up there. So I think in abundance of caution, we'll edit that piece out of it. So I will talk to Dr. Taylor and Mr. Bonds about that, and then it'll be up on the YouTube page.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we are going to move forward with allowing the meetings to become public?
We're going to, I think what we're going to do is have the last updated meetings. We realize people can't come, but there's still that balance of, is this a public meeting, is it a committee meeting, what's the official record, et cetera, et cetera. So we will have, this one will be up on the YouTube channel after the edit, as I just mentioned.
Great, thank you. I'm happy to hear that we've come to that conclusion.
Okay, let's go back to the Title IX Training and Task Force, Dr. Freeman.
Dr. Perez, is this you?
Yep, sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I have to have the audio to hear you guys, but the computer doesn't always work together, so I have to do one and one. So hopefully you can all hear me. So with regard to the task force, things are moving underway. We're finalizing the policy. The task members, as I had stated at the last meeting, are undergoing their training. Some of them have had it already, others have it upcoming. And so we're moving along slowly, but slow is fast, I'd like to say. And so with regard to training overall in terms of the district or responsible employee training, that is nearing completion. We are at 98% completion, so we just have a few other individuals we're trying to get in, but everyone is moving along with their training, and we can pretty much say we'll be 100% by the end of this week, God willing, to have all Title IX training completed by all staff of the district, from the top all the way down to our support staff and all the way around.
Okay, and now to the DCR. I think that's Dr. Perez again.
So as with the help of CNI, the letter, or the response, I should say, to the Division of Civil Rights for New Jersey has been completed. We're going to be reviewing it in the next couple of weeks just to make sure that we have everything in place there in terms of what has been outlined for this year and what the goals are for this year.
Okay, and I don't remember if that required, I don't think it required our approval. I might be getting confused with another thing. I just want to confirm.
I can certainly double check, and if it does need to get approval, I will certainly share that
Okay.
with Dr.
I don't think it does. I just want to make sure that it, okay, thanks.
No problem. I'll look into it.
Okay, board member Malaspina, is that new? I don't remember if
It's
your hand was
new.
up before.
I just think that since this is a public meeting, for the sake of the public, to have a little background understanding of what exactly they're talking about with the DCR letter, or I might have said the acronyms wrong because it's late. It would be a little helpful if we could possibly do that.
Let's just, again, I hate this pedantic dance that we're doing, but it's a committee meeting, not a public meeting. We just happen to be in public because we're all here. So I'll let Dr. Perez do the update.
So I guess, Dr. Perez, can you possibly give a little background as to what that means?
Yes, so the district received
Yep, you're going in and out, Dr.
received
Perez.
an account. Not exactly sure. I don't want to say the name, but an account created on Instagram. And so given what students and alumni have shared through that account, this obviously caught the attention of the DCR. And so they're asking, along with other incidents, they're asking to see what the district is doing currently in order to address this, such as cultural competence, what are our plans, what are our goals, what are our timeframes. And so we have to provide this response, I believe, by November 15th. And so we pretty much have a final draft of it, where it's outlining what the district is preparing for this year in terms of cultural competence training or anything else that would speak to the areas that were highlighted in the particular letter that the district received.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. We got the running game going and we got out of here to 2 decent hours. So thank you, everybody. I make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:31 p.m. Oh, are you waving? Or I saw fingers. Who's waving? Okay, everyone's waving. All right, fantastic. Okay, and I will see some of you tomorrow and all of you Monday. Have a wonderful evening and stay safe, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, you
Thank
too.
you.